This is our news, the weekend edition. And on the broadcast tonight, cleanup on ABACO progressing as tons of debris is removed from the mud area. Plus, we take a look at other recovery challenges in ABACO and discovering new, uniquely Bahamian crafts at JOLLIFICATION.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Good evening, I'm Andrew Knowles, and thanks so much for joining us. Topping news tonight, tons of debris has been removed from the mud after weeks of cleanup work by local firms hired to flatten the shanty town. The massive cleanup work has not been without some challenges, according to officials tasked with completing the work. Our Jasmine Brown reports.
The mud in Marsh Harbor, ABACO was one of the hardest hit areas on that island. Following the storm, the Minnesota administration ordered that what was left of the shanty town be torn down, and as a result, several local firms were hired to do the job. Officials from those companies gave an update on the work, saying tons of debris has been removed. However, they say there is still a lot more that needs to be done.
It's several tons. We're still making, an estimation on the debris that is left. After the initial cleanup, we find that this is a site with, as I said, it has a lot of debris.
Nearly 100 people were hired to carry out the work. The majority of those workers are young men who call ABACO home. President and founder of Bahamas Striping, which is one of the companies contracted for cleanup, Atario Mitchell, is from ABACO and says it was important to get young men from that community involved and working.
Well, that was something that we mandated, me being from ABACO and having a lot of family, friends, and individuals here who I know. What we wanted to do was to give ABACOnians the first rights to come on board as drivers, laborers, because a lot of people left ABACO. And for me, when ABACO has to go through several phases, the first thing is the cleanup phase, and for ABACOnians to be a part of that, I think it's a good start, because they have more involvement in wanting to get ABACO back as quickly as possible.
In addition to the local workforce, there is also more than a dozen pieces of heavy-duty equipment being used to clear the debris and deliver it to makeshift dump sites on the island.
The equipment side, we've done an enormous job with that. But more importantly for us is that we have over 72 workers on this site and on the other sites, and the majority of them, I think we have about 60 plus that are from ABACO that were displaced, living in the shelters in New Providence and or living with family members. We invested in building a man camp here that's housing those men that are being served 3 hot meals per day.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Works Minister Desmond Bannister giving his personal views on what he thinks should be done with the land that once housed one of the biggest shanty towns in ABACO. Following a recent tour of the ongoing cleanup work in the mud ABACO, Bannister said the government will have to make a decision on how the large plot of land will be used once they get rid of all the debris.
This area is going to be cleaned up. It's going to be fenced in properly. And when that is done, the government is going to have to make some decisions. At a personal level, I'd like to see a new city here, sprout up here, as has happened all around the world. And we certainly have the land to make it happen. This would be a wonderful commercial area in the heart of Marsh Harbor, and could create many, many opportunities.
The mud is just one of several shanty towns in ABACO that was leveled by Hurricane Dorian in early September. The Minnesota administration has ordered that the land be cleaned up and implemented a ban on rebuilding.
This was a little city in itself that existed all by itself. They had their shops in there, and nothing was built to regulations. So it must have been horrible. It must have been extremely frightening to be here in the middle of the storm. We cannot permit that to ever happen again in the Bahamas. And I know some people are not happy with the government is seeking to do with shanty towns. But just imagine the horror that some people had to live in when that storm hit.
Though cleanup efforts have been concentrated on those areas where they suspect there may still be bodies, other communities remain virtually untouched in the cleanup. Our Jerome Sawyer reports.
The tragedy in the Haitian communities of the Pigeon Peas, the Mud and Sandbanks has been one of the saddest chapters in this hurricane disaster. And adding insult to injury, many of the survivors without immigration status could face deportation. With these communities now wiped out, the cleanup has been concentrated in those areas due to the looming health risks. 2.5 months later, the massive cleanup is carefully extracting the debris from these shanty towns.
Concern was the fear was decomposing bodies was in these areas in unsanitary conditions that would have posed a threat to the recovery effort. So these became a priority. Even in preparing, they were a priority because we knew the risk they pose to the general population, not just firstly the loss of lives and the unsanitary conditions. And so the devastation that happened, we couldn't anticipate the extent of it, but we were fearful about it.
But there are so many areas in the wider community of Marsh Harbor and surrounding communities still untouched since the storm. Only roads have been cleared and the majority of the debris remains. Entire blocks are still uninhabitable. It's a concern for residents and those wanting to begin rebuilding.
Because now the cleanup has to extend into the other settlement areas. That is one of the concerns that councillors have on the ground from the various townships, because we know that Abaconians are returning home, and so in some regards they're seeing still a lot of debris around them in the communities of Murphytown and Dundastown, and so we want to see a greater push.
One of those neighborhoods still in need of cleanup is Spring City. It's a residential community just on the outskirts of the main Marsh Harbor, where about 300 people live. Roger Delancey has lived through many hurricanes in this community, but Dorian nearly took his life.
When this dropped on us, it didn't come slow. It just come boom. You know? So you didn't have, you couldn't even pack or get ready to move. You just had to run. Thank God. I don't know. Some people start coming around, just blowing horns, and I blow the horn. My brother and blow the horn in the other car, and that's when he said, let's go to the shelter. So we ran out, came right to the shelter here.
On the more positive side, with power now restored and relatively stable in some sections of the island, there are signs of the return of some commercial activity. A lot of the success of businesses is riding on the fact that people need to return to the island, some to visit and some to live. Reporting for our news, I'm Jerome Sawyer.
In other news this evening, in 2018, the Bahamas closed off the year with 91 murders, the lowest in 9 years. The murder count for 2019 currently sits at 89. Well, National Security Minister Marvin attributed the recent bad period to officers being deployed to Grand Bahama and ABACO following Hurricane Dorian.
We had a bad period, but as you can see, I mean, it has been very quiet, well over a month. And so I credit the Royal Bahamas Police Force. I credit them with the work that they're doing to keep our streets safe. We have many police officers out there on the streets of New Providence. And this is coupled in with the work that our police and defense force officers are doing on the island of Grand Bahama and ABACO, because we had to increase the numbers there.
According to the National Security Minister, 1 or 2 murders this month is not too bad.
For the month, we may have had 1 or 2 murders. That's not bad. That's not bad. And but we'll continue to do what we need to do to ensure that Bahamians are safe throughout this country. And the police have assured me, and I speak to the Commissioner a few times a day, that they are now in their holiday strategy mode, and they will continue to ease up some of their static posts in offices and in the stations to get more people on the streets.
Dame says government is currently working on acquiring over 50 vehicles for police officers to have more of a presence on the affected islands.
we're in the process of sending additional resources there in the way of vehicles, because we would have lost a significant amount of law enforcement vehicles, and we would have acquired, I think when I last checked, maybe in excess of this inflow that's going in now, close to 50 vehicles for Grand Bahama and ABACO, for our law enforcement officers over there, to create this visibility to ensure that the people of those islands remain safe.
Well, a man was stabbed at a nightclub following an altercation overnight. Police say the man was at the club on Maxwell Lane in Rock Crusher subdivision around 2 this morning when he and another man got into an argument. That argument escalated, resulting in the man being stabbed. He was taken to hospital where at last report he was listed in serious but stable condition. This is the second stabbing in 24 hours. Investigations continue. Though Christmas is still more than a month away, there are already signs that criminal activity may be rising. Police Superintendent SHANTA Knowles spoke with our news about the everyday activities that can entice and attract criminals.
We're going into the holiday season and we see that stealing from vehicles, we suspect that they may be a challenge for us. We ask persons who park their vehicles to ensure that they're parked in well-lit areas, to ensure that the parcels that they've just purchased are not just thrown on the seat, but put away to the back trunk or taken home and secured properly before you continue your shopping expedition. So a lot of what we suspect may happen can be avoided if people would take simple safety precautions.
She insisted police will be out in full force looking to thwart those who are out looking to commit crimes.
So I just want the public to know that the police force is out. There's no need for panic alarm. We are out on the streets, many of our vehicles. We have increased all vehicle patrols. We will begin patrols, foot patrols in the community. Those has been going on all summer, and they will continue. You will see more police walking the streets. Be assured that the Royal Bahamas Police Force takes the safety of our citizens very seriously, and we will work to ensure that everyone is safe during the holiday season.
Well, still ahead tonight, the Marijuana Commission co-chair says government bureaucracy is hindering the group's work. And later on, find out more on where you can get one of these pieces. Those stories straight ahead.